Okay, good morning. We're still at morning. Want to call this May 18th, 2023 Bond Oversight Committee meeting. Call the meeting to start, please. All right, so with that, if we could please have staff do a roll call just to ensure who we have, please.
Here. Oh, sorry. Abraham Cameo,
Present.
Patty Charlton,
Present.
David Flatt,
Here.
Michael Flores, Byron Goins, Rob Gertison, Chad Conrad,
I'm here.
Nicole Lehman Donadio,
I'm here, thank you.
and Al Lopez.
I'm here.
Yvette Williams.
I'm here.
We have quorum.
All right, thank you. If we could start with agenda item 1.01, the flag salute. And Abraham, if you wouldn't mind leading us in the flag.
Everybody,
Please stand.
please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to agenda item 1.02, adoption of the agenda. Is there any public comment on agenda item 1.02? Seeing none, can I please get a motion to approve the agenda for today?
Abraham, for the record, I motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second by Dave Flat.
Thank you so much. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Any abstentions? Seeing none, thank you so much. Moving on to agenda item 2.01, approval of the minutes from our April 20th meeting. First, is there any public comment on this agenda item? Seeing none. Yes. Just one note is if we could please make any technical adjustments to, I think there's a spelling error on page 1. Great. Thank you. So if we could please have a motion to approve the minutes from our April 20th meeting, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Dave Flat. A second.
Abraham, for the record, I second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
Thank you. Any in opposition? Any abstentions? Seeing none, those minutes are approved. All right, we will move on to agenda item 2.02, reports by the chair and/or liaison representatives. Is there any public comment, please? Seeing none, we will move on. First, just on behalf of the bond oversight as a whole, I know for the committee members, one of the things that we have been talking about is the disparity study that the Clark County School District is completing. And so I know that is being presented this evening to the trustees, and so we want to be timely in our meeting today for those of us who have been interested in waiting for that study to be presented. So we'll look forward to those that wish to watch the trustees meeting or attend here in person. They're welcome to do that. And then we'll follow up from there. So we want to be as efficient in our time today as we can. At that point, I will move on to Chad Conrad, Finance and Investment. Chad.
I don't have much to report this month. I had a meeting scheduled with Mr. Fouts. Unfortunately, I was sick, then my family was sick, and so I didn't want to get anyone in your office the virus. So we'll be rescheduling. The purpose of the meeting is to review some of the detail on specifically on the bond and administrative costs of the program. So we'll follow up and we'll have that meeting before the next committee meeting.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Chad? All right, thank you so much. Now moving on to Al Lopez and Abraham Cameo. Any report from construction? Abraham?
If Al doesn't have anything to add, just following up on the metal detectors, it's been back on the news after Von Tobel incident. I did meet with other members of the community and with Superintendent Dr. Jara. He did mention that the school district will be rolling out a test phase regarding that. I would strongly encourage for future buildings and construction that we start considering maybe having outlets available for future builds. If the school district does decide to move forward with metal detectors, that way they can be charged closely in proximity to these doors. As these plans continue to move, it is a community discussion, and also just to consider the new technology that's out there, so we can, continue this conversation, and in that way, members of the Board of Trustees can make the appropriate decisions moving forward with metal detectors and other security measures that the school district is looking to do and to implement for the safety of our students and our teachers and everybody that works for this great district. So.
Okay, thank you. Any response from staff? Okay. Al, do you have any report for us this morning?
Madam Chair, Al Lopez for the record. I do not have anything further from what Mr. Kamichael's already stated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And just a quick reminder, if you are attending remote, when you're not speaking, if you could please mute your microphone. We got a little bit of feedback, so thank you so much. Moving on to design, Rob Gertison, report for the group.
Hello, everybody. So no report this week. I was absent last week, so I'm going to do some catching up and have a full report for the next month. So thank you.
Great, we can't wait to load you up with questions. Hi, Rob. Hi, Rob. All right, thank you so much. Dave Flat, site selection and land use. Any updates?
We have no updates at this time.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Gina Blackman-Taylor and Michael Flores, community / government relations.
Is Michael here?
Michael is supposed to be attending remote, but he's at the legislature, so happy days.
I don't want to speak for Michael, but Michael and Mark and I had a really great meeting a couple weeks ago. Time has no meaning, so I can't tell you the exact date. But we did talk about how CCSD had testified neutral on the prevailing wage bill that is before the legislature. Essentially, it would add prevailing wage to off-site construction as well as with drivers. And so I don't know that new status of that bill, but in terms of things that would affect construction costs, that is something that is going on at the legislature. And at this point, I have a follow-up still in, but it doesn't look like there will be increased funding for any of the solar projects or continuation of those projects. So I don't know if Mark has any other further information since we last chatted, but I think that's pretty much status quo at this point. But we did discuss, particularly after the session, having a chance for Michael to get more involved in using some of that expertise to facilitate some of those conversations. We further discussed what we kind of are talking about more in terms of a presentation, celebration, question and answer regarding design in order to facilitate the conversation in a way that best makes use of the work that design has already done and construction has already done towards facilities has already done towards that design project. So we're looking forward to having that in, did we say July is I think what my notes said, but then I couldn't tell if that was just a random July written in my notes. And we discussed that regulation 7112 and the importance of getting that and that process finalized before we head into kind of that revision of 5A, 5B, however we end up naming it. But as we move towards that project, using that as a guideline for priorities will become more important, and having that updated. And then we discussed a little bit about that clarification of site-funded projects and how that affects kind of facilities overall, and how there is a working group right now on trying to bring clarity to that issue, and so kind of being able to have not just principals and schools understand that more, but how we kind of get that into lay terms and get some of that conversation out there. So I believe that is it for me.
That's just
Mark,
a
was
little
that
bit, so.
Fair summary.
Yeah, can I just ask a clarifying question? So I know that when we talk about the designs and looking at an opportunity to have those showcase with the new projects coming up, there are 2 different prototypes that are being done. Are we still thinking of dividing up between the elementary presentation and the middle school?
Justin Lamb for the record. At this point, I think we're far enough in design on all three of them that we could do one presentation.
Gina?
Yeah, that sounds great. And I mean, I think, and we talked about this in the conversation with Mark, but just to emphasize that on the record, that I think it's really valuable to at least have some portion of that presentation have a question and answer, because as we've talked about before, it's just that public comment can be a very unsatisfactory way for the public to engage with this, with any of these bodies. So to have whatever that format is called, whatever that format ends up being, so long as there's an attempt to have an opportunity for the public to ask questions that can be answered in that moment.
So just a clarifying question, are we talking 2 presentations, one to bond oversight and a second one for the community, or just one?
Ms. Charlton, I can address that question.
Thank you.
Our goal is to present to the Bond Oversight Committee in the June meeting next month with those prototype designs for both elementary and middle. And then the timeline of July was to then take that very similar presentation to the community.
The roadshow. Great, thanks.
We'll call it a roadshow.
Are there any questions for Ms. Blackman-Taylor? Okay, Mark, do you have any updates just overall that you wanted to share with us that may not fit on the agenda, specifically about the regulations and or the policies in whole?
I do have an update related to one of your members, actually. We need to give our thanks to Ms. Lehman Donadio. I believe that she is going to start wrapping up her term on the Bond Oversight Committee. She sent me a note today, not to totally throw her under the bus and put her on the spot, but I'm doing that. So I would just like to say on the record that it's been fantastic working with her, and thank you, Nicole, for all your time and effort with the organization. I don't know if you prepared a speech. I'm sure you were ready to do that, but just wanted to recognize your efforts in front of the group, and hopefully we can do a more formal recognition in the next meeting.
Nicole. Yes, thank you. And so hopefully we might be able to have you in person so that we can properly thank you at our June meeting.
Yes, that's a possibility. Thank you for being so gracious. I really appreciate my time, and I've learned so much, and I'm ready to retire. So it's not that I'm breaking up with you. I'm just reuniting with the life I used to have 25 years ago.
Well, congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for your service.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on to 2.03, report by the Clark County School Board of Trustee Liaison. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, with that, is Trustee Williams with us?
Hi, thanks everyone. Yeah, I don't really have anything to report, so unless you have any questions, I'm just kind of listening in.
Thank you so much, Trustee. Are there any questions for the trustee today? All right, seeing none, thank you so much. Moving on to agenda item 2.04, the 2015 Capital Improvement Program Summary Status. We will hear a report and discussion on the 2015 Capital Improvement Program from Mr. Fouts. First, is there any public comment? Seeing none, Mr. Fouts.
Thank you. Rodney Fouts for the record. We present, it's already up on the screen. Thank you. Item 2.04A hasn't really changed much. Still have $2.86 billion of revenues to date. We've expensed $2.38 billion and encumbered $153.6 million for a total of $2.54 billion. Leaves us an available cash flow balance of $481 million to date, but I technically call on the true available balance of $327 because I like to reflect the encumbered amount. Just to make a notation about this, our next offering will be probably closing at the end of June or early July, for probably another $200 million. And next week we'll be going over the preliminary offering statement to review drafts of that as we write that documentation for the offering. If we can move on to 2.40B. My comparison for this particular presentation will be from December's report, which was the last time we presented the overall report. We had a significant amount of changes that took place during those 3 months. Overall, our current budget has changed $185 million. Biggest items that have represented what changed within there is we had a changed administrative overhead. It was a fine that Mr. Chad Conrad had discussed with me between 2.04A and 2.04B. I was reflecting that $118 million increase that I reflected on the other statement. So I've added that. That's to represent cost going out to 2035 for the rest of the program. And if anticipated costs are expected to go up again in the future, we will obviously update that particular line item. I'll try and not go over each one of the things that changed, but hit some of the significant ones. Again, in our budget change column, the Green Valley High School modernization, we got the we got the first quote on the 60%, so that went to $7.4 million. We hadn't had a budget on that one in the document. As far as the change went up, $7.4 million. Swanston Comprehensive Modernization, that went up $4.6 million. Bonanza High School Modernization, we got the 100% bid award on that, so we went from $59 million to $64.8 million, predicated on what that bid award was. Las Vegas Academy Replacement School, Phase 1, we had an increase of $900.2 million reflected on that particular project. And we added Hancock Replacement School. We got our first OPC related to that one. We added budget change of $17.5 million to that particular project. When it comes to the original budget column, we had $46.5 million reflected in changes. The predication on that is a lot of the comprehensive modernization projects came in from our first $5 million budgets that we had, and they came in with the 60% OPCs reflecting those changes, as well as anything that we may have had originally assessed, just shown as an assessment and showing the true value of that project. For example, Desert Rose Adult High School Comprehensive Modernization went from our 50K assessment value that we had in there to see what kind of work we needed, and projecting that to be $13.5 million now for that project. Items that you don't normally deal with in the report is what we call the inter-project transfer column. We had a list of schools from Revision 4 that we listed as classroom addition modernizations that we would continue to do. We haven't done any work on those projects to date. So to clean up the paperwork internally within my department, we have removed those from the budget column. Not to say that that work won't necessarily be done in the future. It's just that my staff at this point in time has stated that we will have to apply new project numbers, so MPID numbers to those projects. So at a future date, they will be listed with new numbers and with those budgets added on. But at that time, I reduced the budget by $44 million related to that. Again, the items were most of the schools that you will see that changed are highlighted in blue in the document that's provided to you.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Fouts? Comments? Chad Conrad.
Thank you for the presentation. No specific line item questions for me, but more general. I think we had, some months ago, we had talked about the overall impact of rising costs, and I think we're all aware of the the situation over the last couple of years with sourcing goods and construction and those type of things. If I remember correctly, what we had talked about was we were going to revisit the impact to the budget overall when we got to the point where we were at the kind of the bid award phase for these. We seem to be getting there soon. I think if you go through the document, there's a number of 90% designs, 100% designs. I think you mentioned there was one, I think, that was it's bid award. So I wanted to follow up on just I guess the request for some additional review on budget impact of these increases at that bid award stage, just to refresh that conversation. And then I guess the question then for you guys is when do you think we're at the point where we'll have enough bid in to have that review of the budget?
Rodney Fouts for the record. Try and give you a synopsis of what I'll be doing in the next month and a half. Our 5-year plan is usually due in July. So in preparation for that, I will be working on the cash flow statements regarding that to determine what we're going to project our expenditures to be for those next 5 years. That process will involve me looking at the amounts that we have done on our comprehensive modernization projects and our Revision 5 projects, as well as the major project that we had underway, like the Northeast CTA. During that process, I will come up with revised schedules showing what I think the impact of those changes will be. So for example, my last rough go around on the comprehensive modernization projects, the ones that we had a budget for originally, I'd already been up roughly $100 million on those. I think it was 8 or so projects. And I was seeing that was in that 25% range of what we had addressed in prior meetings, not only on our side, but also what was brought to us by the committee itself as far as what they were seeing as the cost. So what I anticipate is when I get those numbers done, I will share those types of numbers, obviously, with you, Chad, and we can discuss what, if anything, that we need to present here. As far as the 100%, I'm getting a few of those. I think Justin will have a pretty good idea as to what the timing of that is. I can't necessarily wait for the 100% because I got to get the 5-year plan done, but we'll obviously utilize the 60s and 90% and so forth. And anything that has less than that, try and use what those percentage increases are, probably to estimate what projects I don't have a lot of information on right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Additional questions? Mr. Gertison.
Cool. Thank you very much. So just on line item 929, which is Bonanza High School, which you mentioned earlier, I went on a tour prior to the award of that and just did a understanding of the scope of work. And with about like a 17 or 18% increase, I was just curious if there was any, was it value added change order, or knowing with existing old buildings, there's a lot of unknowns. Was there a lot of things that we didn't anticipate in there, or we're just curious on that?
So Justin Lamb for the record. So through the process on that one, one is we added the cafeteria addition, which dramatically added some scope and cost to that project that was approved in Revision 5. Touch the school once was our goal here. The other part of that is we do have a number of contingencies and allowances in there to cover the unknowns that we come across, whether it be, asbestos in a wall or, we start digging and pipes are not where they said they were, or where the GPRs come in. So that's part of the cost increase on that. At the same time, we did quite a bit of scoping, de-scoping, reviewing, I'm going to say beating up of the entire team to make sure we were in line with where we thought pricing should be and the scope for the scope of work.
Thank you. Sounds like it was a value-added proposition mostly, so thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions remotely? Okay. I have a follow-up question to Mr. Conrad's. As we're looking at these projects and obviously the cost increase that we're realizing, layering that with the presentation that we received from Mr. Baldwin, we had some projects that are slated as just placeholders for elementary schools. Is that going to be a presentation or a conversation that we have, and the need for a new revision, specifically around the cost, absorbing that, and then also looking at what may be needed or what might not be needed?
Yeah, Ms. Charlton, Mark Campbell for the record. Absolutely, we will need, and I think to Ms. Blackman-Teller's point earlier, we're trending that way towards needing to have a revision of some variety. Since we kind of planned the entire bond in CIP 5, all of the conversations that we've had in the last couple of months, I think it's smaller changes, and I think we may want to look at having, interim meetings with a couple members of the committee, like was done for CIP 5, to really, build that laundry list and be able to act on it more quickly than a CIP cycle may normally take, to be able to move and move money and balance budgets and things like that. So definitely had that conversation with Rodney, prior to these meetings. And so don't have a clear timeline on that, but I think it's very soon. And I do think it aligns with how we want to execute comprehensive modernizations beyond the list that you're seeing today from Justin. And again, balancing the cost of those with what we may or may not need from CIP 5.
Okay, so possibly as early as fall, we'll have those conversations?
I think that would be great.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Any follow-up questions? Any additional questions? Okay, thank you for that report. And that is an information item, so thank you very much. All right, moving on to agenda item 2.05, 2015 CIP update, projects in construction and design. We're going to hear a report and discussion regarding the 2015 capital improvement program projects that are in construction and design. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, Mr. Lamb.
Can we bring up item 2.05? There it is. All right, next page, please. So real quick, we wanted to do just a brief update on where we are in the current capital improvement plan, what's opening this summer, what's starting construction this summer and fall, and then the projects that we have in design. So the first project up is the Northeast Career and Technical Academy. Extremely excited for this one. This one's been 3+ years in the works. So it's looking to have about 1,800 student capacity. TSK Architects and Core Construction were our partners in this one. They've done a fantastic job. Our construction budget was right around $146 million. We're still trending towards that, and probably a little bit less by the time all the final change orders and everything else come through. Next slide, please. All right, so Sandy Valley High School Phase 3. Also super excited to have this one wrapping up. We started out there with the gym in Phase 1 that opened in summer of 17, and you can kind of see that in the background. That's the taller building. And then in Phase 2 was the elementary building, and that's the one off to the right by the softball fields. And that was summer of 21 we opened that one. And so Phase 3 was the high school and the athletic fields, or I should specifically say the baseball and football field. And that is wrapping up this summer. Ready for, excited to have students in there, get them in some new space. So the high school looks like it has a capacity of approximately 150 students. LGA and Raphael Construction were our partners on this one. And our construction costs are right around $15 million for this phase of the project. Next slide. Sec to Phase 3, the gym. This was actually the first project that we were able to complete with the extension of the bond. So we're super thankful and excited for that. I know the school is thrilled for this to open. Carpenters, Sellers, Delgado, and Raphael Construction were our partners on this one. This one has a rough construction cost of about $19/20 million, right in that range. And John C. Fremont Middle School. I'm more excited than anybody else for this one to be wrapping up. But we're super excited. This was a long project in the making from design all the way through construction. It's got a student capacity of about 850 students, and Simpson Coulter and APCO Construction were our partners in this one. All right. Next slide, please. All right, so 2023 construction starts. Got a long list and a lot of fun things going on. So Bonanza High School, comprehensive modernization, that was part of Revision 4. That was our very first of the comprehensive modernizations. And then we have Ruby Thomas Replacement School, Mountain View Elementary Replacement School, Red Rock, Bass Elementary, that's a comprehensive modernization, Laughlin High School, middle school. Really, this is the K-12 that was approved in Revision 5. St. Jude's Ranch, that one is slated to start any day now. Super excited for that project. It's going to serve such an amazing group of people and be able to create such great opportunities. Brindley High School, or Brindley Middle School, Graham Middle School, Cimarron Memorial. I apologize. I'm going to go through these a little quick. But as you can see, there's quite the list of stuff that we've got going on that's going to start construction this year. Right. Garside Replacement, Woodbury Replacement, Cheyenne Comprehensive Mod, Mac Middle School Comp Mod, Silverado Comp Mod, West Prep Comp Mod, Green Valley High School Comp Mod, Darnell Comp Mod, Charles Silvestri Comp Mod, Carl Elementary, and Swinston Comp Mod. So I really have to thank my team and all the architects and designers and engineers involved in this. This has been a very, I'm going to say, monumental lift for us to get to this point where we can get all of these projects started this year. So next slide, please. And continuing into all the fun things we have in design and looking forward to all the projects that we have going out. Right now, this list is taking us out till about an opening of 2027. So we have Thurman White comp mods, Loomis Elementary comp mods, LVA Phase 1, that's the gym and the parking garage. Desert Rose High School comp mod, Desert Rose Adult High School comp mod, Aggie Roberts Elementary, it's also a comp mod. The El Dorado cafeteria expansion, that was part of Revision 5. Deering and Hancock, part of Revision 5, as well as Von Tobel. South Career and Tech, that school's under design right now as well. Walter Bracken, that's a replacement. Southwest High School, new school, that's super exciting. Our first comprehensive high school in, I want to say, 12 plus years at least. Brown replacement, Cashman replacement, Indian Springs replacement, Wengert replacement, and then the Choice High School over at Del Robeson. As you can see, we've got quite a bit more on our plates moving forward, and our designers and everybody else are working hard and sure ready to hurt somebody on one day, given the deadline. Next page, please. All right, so any comments or questions at this point?
So want to see remotely if we have any questions first. Hi, Ms. Williams.
Hi, do you have a date on the Northeast Career Tech as to the ribbon cutting? And will we be invited to that?
I do not have a date. I'm sure we can arrange that the bond oversight is invited to that. We'll make sure we work with communications.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions remotely? I see a box, but I can't see who's there. Sorry. Okay, seeing none. Moving here, Mr. Gergison.
Looks like the featured projects have done very well. fact, there was a change order here for Northeast Career Technical Academy. Looks like it was about another 15 or 17%, but this one's in under budget. Was there scope or anything taken out off of that, or, I mean, that seems pretty significant, or is this just the project's not?
Are we talking total project cost versus construction cost?
No, looking at item number 26 on the sheet, looks like there's a approved revision estimate cost was 245 million, and then the current estimated cost is 205. So it's about a 40 million or 39 million decrease.
So from a construction cost, we've been hovering right around that 150 number. Rodney, I'd ask maybe you speak to that, the total change.
Yeah, obviously, when we were going out with this revision and putting out the CTAs, we hadn't built a CTA in quite some time. So the idea was, we knowing that usually CTA is going to cost us more than a standard comprehensive high school. Even though the footprint's lower, what goes into it is more expensive. We built the budget at $245 million. I believe at the time our construction budget was around $150 million as well, so we knew we potentially had too much in there once I saw what the construction budget was going to possibly be. Waited till we actually got I think it was 4 phases of the GMP. I think there was 4 phases of GMP that we got. As soon as I got those 4 phases, that's what came in. That's what made me revise the budget by $39 million to get us down to $206 million. I think the other thing that we had going for this, to some degree, is some of this work had already been underway prior to some of the costs going up. Obviously, not all of it, but to some degree, some of it.
Great. And is the project on schedule?
Yes, it is.
Great. Okay. Sounds like a great project. Thank you.
I guess the question would be which schedule, because I think originally it was delayed a year, was it not? No? Okay. Then it's just the south CTA that keeps getting delayed. Sorry.
Great. Thank you for the clarification. Appreciate it.
Conrad? Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. Question about, I mean, this is clearly a massive list of projects. I mean, it's a tremendous undertaking with this amount of project construction underway or getting underway. But my curiosity is just if there were if there's delays anticipated due to construction timing, labor availability, those type of things, if you found that there were delays anticipated versus a normal timeline that you've had in the past, and have you factored those things in if they exist?
So yes, we've tried to factor in as much kind of known delays that we've experienced over the last 1.5 to 2 years into these projects, anticipating that. Now, I wish I had the crystal ball, and if I did, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be playing the lottery a little better.
Do you generally think these projects are taking longer now than what you've seen in the past?
Yes, we're building extra time into almost everything for some procurement or other items, whether it's just an unanticipated delay from a manufacturer to we know that switch gears 12 months out. So we're building as much buffer into these projects as possible.
Thank you.
Rodney, thoughts for the record as well. One of the items that has been challenging, obviously, on my side is when the timelines keep changing on the project, makes it kind of hard for me to cash flow those projects out. So to some degree, I've been waiting as long as I possibly can to not do as much work on that particular item, just so I can get what I think is the more appropriate time frame. One of the items that goes into presenting our cash flow to Zion's Bank, who is basically our consultant who helps us issue our bond offerings. We provide them the cash flow. They will run it into their model to see that we meet our covenants. One thing that could affect timing of projects, if for some reason our covenants aren't in line, then they may say, well, you don't have the money available at that time to potentially do a project, which means that we could come back and say we need to delay a project or so to meet our covenants. However, that won't be fully realized until that's presented to them. On the other side, since we haven't been spending the funds in the prior 2 years as fast as we anticipated, particularly since this year was mainly design, we have gotten obviously more relief for the future as far as being able to meet those covenants. So hopefully there won't be any issue in that regard.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions? Ms. Blackman-Taylor?
This is Gina Blackman-Taylor for the record. So that Southwest High School, I remember when we were talking about CIP 5, I believe there were 2 other high schools that were a part of it. One was for up north near Arborview, and then the other one was Robeson, I believe, right? Was that changing into a specialty high school? I don't have CIP in front of me, CIP 5, so forgive me. But I remember distinctly from those conversations that there was expressed a really, really great need for about that overcrowding in Arborview High School in particular. When can we anticipate those other 2 high schools kind of coming onto this list?
So Robeson is, and I apologize, it's on this list already. Choice High School. That's the very last one on the design. That's anticipated to come online fall of '27. The Northeast High School, pending BLM approval, we're shooting for, or Northwest, we're shooting for fall of '28.
That's the Sky Canyon, correct?
Yes.
That area.
Thank you.
Mr. Camillo?
Abraham for the record. With all this construction, which is a great thing, providing much work for everybody in our community, I do see that we might need to address, maybe controlling the budgets being increased because of there's going to be a time where we're going to start having a shortness of professional labor availability with all the constructions and all the projects that are being exposed everywhere in our valley. So I kind of see that maybe as a precaution to start maybe preparing our budgets and everything for labor shortages to get these projects completed on time. And I hate to say it because it's going to be happening, and if we're following the news, with workforce like in Florida, it's going to trickle down to here to Nevada really quick. And so, Randy, I just wish you the best of luck when you start pinching in those numbers and you start doing your thing, because I do see a lot of this future construction being delayed, not because of the project itself, but due to the labor shortage of professional workers.
So I will say we are constantly monitoring that with our contracting partners or subcontracting partners, as well as our estimators and different colleagues across the country, looking at all of that information. And we're trying to keep that in mind as we're looking to release projects and set timelines. So we are definitely keeping our eyes on those things.
One more follow-up question. Now, on these contracts and these bids that have been awarded, is there any price lock-in guarantee, I guess you could say, without it increasing more if it gets delayed after a certain time?
So our contracts are generally, our hard bid contracts that's a fixed price, minus any change orders and things like that come through our standard project. And our contracts are fairly rigid and we don't allow price escalations. So, and then our CMAR projects, same thing, we have a guaranteed maximum price on those projects. So those are setting our prices through the entire project.
Thank you so much.
Gina, did you have a follow-up?
No.
Okay. I have just a couple of questions. So first, what strategies are you using, I think, in follow-up to the questions that we've had about delays in receiving materials, labor shortages? What strategies is the school district using to specifically go after? Because we've got a lot of projects, and we knew that this was a year of design, but now you're going to have a lot hitting, and our own contractors most likely will be competing with one another?
So depending on the types of projects or the timelines, like, we've looked at early procurement, which gives us anywhere from an additional 6 months to get materials ordered and, in line for queue. We are always looking at what kind of temp measures we may need to put in place, whether that's temporary switchgear, temporary cooling, things of that nature, to keep the schools kind of on track while everything gets here. So whether that's bringing in equipment to start early climatization instead of waiting till the absolute last minute when the gear gets there, or just simply trying to, and simply just trying to buy out as much as possible early on in the projects.
So speaking of that, because I think as I remember when Northeast CTA was being done, that was the first time we'd done multiple GMPs. Is that the strategy then to do advanced purchasing? Or is that only accomplished with a CMAR, or is that also something with a hard bid that can be done?
With the CMAR, we're able to do that. With a hard bid, we just extend the timeline, and we do like a 6-month procurement window before construction starts. So a good example is, say, an elementary school or a replacement elementary school. We kind of have a 1-year window to build that, right? School gets out on May 20th-ish, and school starts back up the following year, August 7th, 8th. So we'll try and release that project 4 months, 6 months early, allow procurement, and then they're able to hit the ground running with everything in tow, as opposed to just on time delivery that we're kind of used to in the past.
So you have your contractor on board in advance?
Yes.
Okay, and then I'm just going to ask one additional question if I can. So the South Career and Technical Academy, that was originally approved at the same time as the Northeast CTA. That is not under construction at this time. What are the challenges? I think it's related to land. Have those been resolved, and is that being done with the city of Henderson?
Yeah, so with South Korea and Tech, I can take that one, Mark Hamill, for the record. Sorry, Ms. Charlton. This project is under design, and although I'm not sure if it's on this list, but it is under design, and we were severely challenged with the timeline with regard to the BLM location in Henderson. And so at the same time, looking at our other land in the very nearby area, we did look at a site that we owned 20 acres just on the other side of St. Rose, basically. So we've been preparing to build on that site as well. The same school, same programming, and same everything. There is a very strong chance, and we have communicated this with the city of Henderson multiple times about the timeline struggles with the BLM, and we haven't really made the progress that we would have liked to have seen to build that and have it open in August 2026. So that's our goal, and we do think we're going to be able to do that on the other location. So we are pursuing that as well. And there are some benefits to that location beyond the timeline. It is much closer, and Rick could support this if there's further questions, but there's about 1,000 students eligible for that school that live very nearby that school, as opposed to pioneering on the Henderson site, where there's very little development in that area thus far.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much. So that was also an information item. We are moving right along. So and thank you all for all of our, addressing all of our questions, and appreciate the comprehensive. This is exciting because I remember when Gina Blackman-Taylor and Rob Gertison had participated in the revision, we were all kind of, I think, breathing, wow, this is going to be exhausting. So we can't wait to see all of this completed. So moving on to agenda item 2.06, questions and or removal of items on motions and taskings. Is there any public comment? Okay, so we'll start our discussion, review, clarification, and possible action. We have our 3 items that are on here, so if we could just start with Ms. Williams. If we have, I think we've got a tentative date for Dr. Barton. I think this is the one with Dr. Barton to present to us in July 2023. Is that correct?
Correct. That's the month that he said he'd be ready.
Well
And we
done.
are attempting to set up a time to meet prior to that. And so we're still on point. In fact, I did send him a text message yesterday, just reconfirming in anticipation of this meeting today, but I do anticipate July.
Great, and thank you for stewarding this. You've been doing this for the last couple of years, so appreciate that. Any questions on this item? Okay, the second item is the diversity and inclusion plans, including accountability. We do know that that is scheduled, this relates somewhat to the disparity study that is being presented this evening. Any questions regarding this item or changes? Hearing none?
Oh, I have my hand up,
Oh,
Chair.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
We have to stand up out of our seat to see the screen. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I would like to leave it on there for now. I know we have a hearing on part of that. And so I do plan to listen in. I had a medical procedure yesterday, so I'm not going to be able to attend as much as I wanted to be there in person, but I will be listening in. I'd like to leave it on for now, that task.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving on to the last item, example of a new elementary school, middle school, high school construction projects, contracts, and expenditures. So wanted to see Ms. Blackman-Taylor, Mr. Conrad, if there are any clarifications or edits to this?
This is Gina Blackman-Taylor for the record. Chad and I did have a chance to meet since the last meeting. And one of the positives to share was that being able to compare a completed elementary school with one that was under construction, you really could see that there was consistency in cost irregardless of construction company, which was a positive. I'd still like to keep this on just for the moment because it was an elementary school. I think there's just a lot of data. I still have time to look through it. It doesn't mean it won't go away very quickly, but I didn't want to take it off just yet, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you to Justin for the information you shared with Chad and Randy as well, and then Chad taking the time to walk through that with me as well. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. So are there any additions to motions and taskings from the group? Okay, so seeing no additions, at this point, we're going to continue with the items that are listed. And so I don't think we need to take an action, Council? Okay, thank you so much. All right, thank you. And so moving on to agenda item 2.07, future agenda planning. Want to see if there's any public comment. This is where we would discuss possible actions for the School Board of Trustees Bond Oversight Committee to add to the agenda. Seeing none. Anything from the members of the Bond Oversight Committee? Any future agenda planning items that you'd like to see considered? Yeah. Wait. Oh, I can't see. I can't tell this. Okay, Ms. Williams?
I'm sorry, and I don't know if this needs to be an agenda item or not. So I'm going to ask for everyone's input on this. But we did, or I brought up last meeting about the bleachers. It is a security issue, and I've spoken to several principals when I've been at their campus for activities with students, and where there's been fights that have broken out, things like that in the auditoriums, in the gymnasium when there's these games, and because the bleachers are not repaired. And so I'm just wondering, I don't know if it needs to be an agenda item or how you want to handle it, Madam Chair, but I would like to at least get some kind of accountability from facilities as to I know that the information they gave us, there was 20 high schools and 13 middle schools with open work orders. But I'm just wanting to get a better understanding of how are we moving on that? Are they going to be repaired by the new school year? In particular, the high school students, like high schools more so, because they have more games in those gyms. I'm just really concerned about that and moving forward. How should we proceed on that, Madam Chair?
Okay, thank you. And did want to thank the staff for providing the list of the schools that do have
Yes.
their work orders. I
Yes,
think if I
very
can turn
much.
it to Mr. Lamb and just, or Mr. Campbell, if you could please advise, do you have a timeline for the completion of those and those work orders to be resolved?
Ms. Charlton and Ms. Williams, Mark Campbell for the record. The timeline, it certainly varies. Some of the, and I didn't, pull or remove any, so some of those work orders are very cosmetic in nature, and some of those work orders are motors that need to be replaced that are specialized and metal parts that are, bent or not functioning. So some of those issues are quite severe, and it's not a trade that we have in-house that constantly goes around and deals with the bleachers. So we have a fairly limited contractor pool that we do partner with on the more major items. And so, I guess I would have to leave it up to the committee on how to do that, other than to say that I would put it with any category of work order that the maintenance group goes to execute in terms of priority and urgency, and that our facility managers are constantly communicating with the principals at the schools to prioritize work across the unit, limits being funding and limits being, contractor availability. So it's, these work orders are prioritized. They have an SLA. Some of them fall out of the SLA for some of the reasons that I mentioned already.
Okay, if I could just ask one quick question. Do we still have quorum? We've had, Mr. Lopez had to leave, as he mentioned, at 12:30. We were missing a member.
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. So perhaps maybe what we could do is to bring back to a future agenda what estimated timeframes might look like. I'm assuming that funding is in place for those replacement bleachers, or it's a priority. I'm assuming it's a safety issue as well for the district.
That's what I'm, Madam Chair, that's what I'm more concerned about, is those where they're not able to use the opposite side of the gym. So those cosmetic things, those, in my mind, aren't necessarily a priority unless it's a priority for the principal. But my concern is more of a safety issue for the not being able to use the other side of the gymnasium for the visiting team or the visiting school. So I can't imagine that it's 20 high schools. So what is that? I don't know, maybe 5, I don't know. But that was what kind of where I was kind of coming from, is from more of a safety concern.
Okay. There's a couple of different strategies, but I'd like to hear from Mr. Camejo, but perhaps we also let Abraham and Al, our construction liaisons, kind of also follow back up on this. Just wanted to see. Abraham?
Abraham for the record. Mr. Campbell, for, just curious, what is the district's procedure for a lockout tagout regarding these bleachers? At what point do we say we can't use these at all? We shouldn't have the principals even messing with them versus, let's extend them because they're some wear and tear. But there's got to be a certain point where they completely need to be locked out for safety reasons, because heaven forbid there's a lawsuit that happens, some kid trips, and then next thing you know, we have to be settling through litigation. So I understand the parts and the repairs, but my question is, at what point do we just simply say, can't touch them, can't use them until the work order is completed?
Mr. Camejo, Mark Campbell for the record. There are 2 groups at CCSD that are responsible for that. Number 1 is our risk management department. And so anytime we have a work order of that kind of nature, that kind of severity, maintenance will work with our risk management department. We have a member of that team in our office that would go and assess something like that to potentially close a facility. We also have our building department that provides inspections with its in facilities. And so those groups typically work together to look at any type of room, building, piece of equipment that needs to be closed. So or made inoperable. So, but it flows from out of a work order and a communication to the facility manager, and then they work with those teams to decide those items. Yeah.
Okay. If you could put me in contact with those offices, with those teams, maybe I can go out there as a liaison and just take a look at these bleachers and then be able to report back for, next meeting under construction. And then that way just be able to maybe help out any questions that the principal might have and just be like a facilitator if it's possible.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you about what that workflow might look like. We need to make sure we get the right people
I
involved
think,
to
I
escort
think
it.
also,
So-
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I can't see you all, so it's kind of difficult for me, but I just wanted to just remind everyone that it is CCSD policy that when there is a game in that gym, that the opposing team must sit on the other side. The other school has to sit on the other side for this very reason. So, we want to make sure that we're in compliance with CCSD policy. We want to make sure we're operating that way. And we have to make sure our facilities are up to par so that they can, operate within policy.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Campbell has a response.
Yeah, I would just say two things. They're kind of broad statement that, I think I would leave it up to the committee on how to make the request to us as staff as far as the list that you're looking for. And I think we can do that, whether it's an agenda item or motions and taskings, for more severe issues. And we can put, a line item on exactly how we're addressing that issue. And I say that as an example, Green Valley High School will be on that list. Those bleachers are being replaced as a part of the comprehensive modernization that you saw was on track for today. There are a couple other schools on that comprehensive modernization list that are getting new bleachers based on the assessment that was done originally at the school. So I'll leave it there.
Abraham, did you have a follow-up? Okay. Well, I wonder, similar to the manner in which you provided that follow-up response via email, perhaps just even if it's already being addressed through a modernization and or an estimated ETA or whatever, perhaps that might be possible?
I think that would be fine.
Okay. I would like to...
Oh, I'm sorry.
I would like to ask for consideration of one agenda item for a future meeting, and this would probably be more for Ms. Blackman-Taylor and Mr. Flores, is any follow-up or a presentation that could be in when and if the legislature closes, any potential impacts to our bond or any funded or unfunded mandates that might impact the capital improvement program, such as you gave an example of the prevailing wage, but until the legislature sets, anything can happen. So maybe just a post-legislative memorial or service, just a consideration, but we would need to have someone to second that as an item. If we want to take them individually.
This is Gina Blackman-Taylor for the record. I'm happy to provide any of that information, but a lot of that I think would come from, CCSD and the government relations person in terms of what specifically might impact. And so maybe that is a more appropriate item for motions and taskings as a staff report, or is it just a request that we would make as part of a future agenda planning?
Yeah, I was thinking just a post-legislative 2023 session, anything that impacts the bond capital improvement program as a whole. Agenda? Okay. So we can move that for a future agenda item. Is there a second?
This is Gina Blackman-Taylor for the record. I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Are there any additional future agenda items for consideration? Okay, all right, so seeing none, we'll move to agenda item 3.01, public comment on items not listed as action items on the agenda. So we will This is the time where we have public comment during this portion of the agenda is offered for individuals wishing to speak on matters within the jurisdiction of the board but not listed as an action item on the agenda. Each individual wishing to speak during the period will be given 3 minutes to address the board. The public should be aware that the board is unable by law to deliberate or take action on items not listed on the agenda. In an effort to be fair and consistent, board members will refrain from addressing individual public comments. Is there any public comment?
There's no one signed up for public comment.
Great, thank you. So we'll move to agenda item number 4. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting today?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Abram, for the record, I second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you so very much. All right,
Have
Nicole,
a nice weekend.
yeah, Nicole, we hope to see you in person next time.